What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTP Ravens Media, bringing you Ravens content every single day. If you want to stay up to the Ravens content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Turn the notification bell on if you want to get notified every single time I upload a brand new video. Now, today, I do apologize if there is some sort of press conference. I'm not 100% sure. I will not be able to make a recap video out on it. So that's just a heads up. I'm going to be traveling all day today, so this is pre-recorded in advance. But I will be back tomorrow. So if tomorrow there's, press conferences and things like that, I'll make a recap then so you can get caught up on all the things that you missed if you weren't able to find the information on ESPN or The Athletic or, wherever you get your Baltimore Ravens content. In this video, however, I wanted to talk about something that I was not planning on talking about until a couple of days ago, because the only edge rusher that I really thought, one, that the Ravens should even try and get, / they could actually get, / it would actually be worth it, was Justin Houston. It was the only guy. But Chandler Jones, when he requested that trade, it put Ravens fans. I would think that there are a lot of Ravens fans that would prefer Justin Houston, and there's a lot of Ravens fans that would prefer Chandler Jones. And so I'm going to talk about that in this video, the differences, the pros and cons of going after each player. I'm going to start with Chandler Jones because he's kind of the newer guy in terms of what he can bring and, us just thinking, oh, wow, we can actually get him. Chandler Jones has a $14.5 million cap hit this year, and it's the last year of his deal. The Ravens would have to trade for for him from the Arizona Cardinals, who do not really want to trade for him. So the cost would be high for Chandler Jones. Now, what would it bring you? Now, a lot of people look at Chandler Jones and they say, oh, yeah, he didn't really produce last year. Well, he got hurt, and you may look at that and be like, oh, injury history, that's really scary. I'm not too scared, considering he played 4 consecutive years starting all 16 games, and he's not coming off of a leg injury. If he tore his ACL or ruptured his Achilles or something like that, I would be very weary, but he injured his arm. And yes, that's still a massive limb of the body. It's not something that's absolutely important in terms of, reviving and bringing it back to 100%. Like, he's not going to be crippled by that injury for the rest of his career, most likely. So I expect him to be able to get back. Now, will he have 19 sacks? I wouldn't expect that, which he did have in 2019. The last full season he played, he had 19 sacks. But I would absolutely guarantee he'd be at least 10 sacks. Probably he could be in that 13 sack range. He could even be 15 sacks. And not only would he be able to do that, he's a guy that used to be teammates with Calais Campbell, so he knows him. And also, he would just be a good veteran to have. I mean, having a player that's led the league in sacks before, led the league in tackles for loss before, led the league in forced fumbles before, and having a first-round pick that is new to the position, absolutely. Sign me up all day, every day of the week. He could absolutely help mentor Odafe away. Now, the price. Let's talk about it. If the Ravens went after him, they would absolutely agree to a contract extension with him. I think he would agree to a contract extension with the Ravens for a couple of reasons. One, his brother is Arthur Jones. Arthur Jones won a Super Bowl in Baltimore, so there's the chance that he looks at that and his brother's like, hey, man, this is a winning program. Go there, you'll probably win. 2, former teammate of Calais Campbell. We've brought in other former teammates of Calais Campbell before. For example, Yannick Ngakoue. Calais could probably talk to him and say, hey, man, it's been a while since we played together, but come on, let's bring it back and let's go dominate on the football field in Baltimore. Let's go win a Super Bowl together. And 3, Chandler Jones wants to be on a contender. The Ravens are a contender. So that's a team that he would definitely be looking at. So I think he would resign. Now, the cost is the main question. For me, in my personal opinion, I would absolutely trade a first-round pick and even some change. Like, if it was a first-round pick and a fifth-round pick, but we get back a sixth-round pick, I would do that in a heartbeat for Chandler Jones. He's an absolute stud. He may be a top 2 edge rusher in the NFL. Top 3, absolutely. The only guys I have ahead of him are probably T.J. Watt and Myles Garrett. Those are probably the only guys. He is up there with Khalil Mack. He's up there with the Bosas. He's up there with pretty much every edge rusher. Aaron Donald's not an edge rusher, so don't think about him. Aaron Donald is better. Aaron Donald's the best football player in the NFL. But overall, Chandler Jones would be an absolute monster. However, would it be more worth it to go after him or Justin Houston? Justin Houston, I've talked about it a million times. Justin Houston is a veteran. He's been at the top of the game. Very similar to Chandler Jones. The benefit of Justin Houston is that the Ravens would just be signing him right now. So they would be able to dictate the terms of the contract. So they would know how much of a cap hit he is this year. Because if you remember, the Ravens only have about $8.5 million in cap space. Difficult to pay Chandler Jones, but Justin Houston, you could say, okay, yeah, we'll give you a 2-year, $22 million deal. However, it's only $8 million this year, and it's a backloaded deal. I don't know exactly what the Ravens would do. However, that is something that is possible. They could do that with Justin Houston to make sure, like, hey, we're going to be able to get him. However, what would the production look like? Justin Houston versus Chandler Jones. Now, Justin Houston, obviously, I talked about, he's been at the top of the game. He led the league. He had 22 sacks in 2014. Chris Jones was in the NFL in 2014. Unfortunately, he only had 6 sacks. Kind of an unfortunate season for him. It was only his 3rd year in the league. But overall, Justin Houston was a monster. However, if you look at his, recent 5 seasons, they're good. Don't get me wrong. Do not get me wrong. They are good seasons. 8 sacks last year, 11 before that, 9 before that, 9.5 before that. And then he was injured the year before that, so I'm not going to count it. That's pretty solid. It's about 8 to 11 sacks every single year. Like, the Ravens would take that. If you look at Chandler Jones' last 4 years of playing a full season, 19, 13, 17, and 11. That is really good. That is unbelievably good. Like, that is absolutely ridiculous, those numbers that he gets put up. And he started to finally get recognition in 2019 for how good he was. However, I think last year everybody forgot. And him being a guy like that, I think Chandler Jones would definitely be the guy that produces a lot more. He is a guy that you would be able to put out there every single snap. Justin Houston, I think, it's going to be at the point where it's like, okay, we got to let Odafe away and Sack Daddy and Dalen Hayes all play because, Justin Houston just doesn't have it in him anymore, even though he's still good. Don't get me wrong. Justin Houston is a good option. If we got Justin Houston, I'd be completely okay. However, I'm all in on Chandler Jones. If the Ravens are going, the Ravens have tried to make big splash moves. Think about it. They tried to trade for Julio Jones prior to the draft. They ended up saying, you know what? We got this Rashad Bateman guy. We got this Tylan Wallace guy. We don't really need Julio Jones. But they tried to trade for him. Another guy, Juju Smith-Schuster, Kenny Golladay. Like, they wanted to make a big splash move. Unfortunately, the players ended up going in other places, but the Ravens tried to get them. Chandler Jones plays a more important position than Julio Jones, and he is the same tier of player. And you may think, oh, that's ridiculous. I don't think so. I firmly believe the core of a defense is front 7. I firmly believe that wide receiver is not a position that significantly equates to wins. Heck, look at the Ravens the last few years. The receivers haven't been good. They still win. And the front 7's been pretty solid. So overall, I think that, having Chandler Jones, and we've already boosted up the wide receiver core. It's not like we're lacking wide receivers. We got wide receivers. We got an offensive line. We got tight ends. What is the one spot the Ravens defense needs? Edge rusher. And why not get the best edge rusher available and send as much as possible? I wouldn't send 2 first-round picks. I would send 1 because it would be pick 32 or pick 31, which is pretty darn good for me. So basically a borderline second-round pick. So overall, I'm all in on Chandler Jones. However, comment down below your thoughts. Comment down who you want the Ravens to go after, Justin Houston or Chandler Jones. I've talked about Justin Houston a lot, so I didn't give a ton of, analysis on him because I was like, what, I've talked about Justin Houston in 15 videos probably in the last 2 months. Like, it's like a couple times a week. So, I figure y'all know a lot about Justin Houston, but comment down below who you want, what you'd give up for, Chandler Jones, what you pay him afterwards. Cause I'd pay him $15, $16 million a year on a 4-year deal. I straight up would. I think he's that good. I think he could be that next guy that just balls out as an edge rusher forever. Like, he could become what T Sizzle was for us at the end of his career, where he was dominant. And then, the later years in his contract, he may not be, a 15-sack guy, but, he's on the roster with Odafe Away and Dalen Hayes and Tyus Bowser. And that's a core that's now really good because he mentored them all the way to the top. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Subscribe for daily Ravens content, and I will see all of you again tomorrow with updates if there are any. And if